Okay, we're going to begin our presentation. I'd like to welcome everyone to the What to Expect During Your Stage 1 Audit webinar. My name is Joseph Krolikowski, and I'm the Technical Director of Perry Johnson Registrars. A couple of notes for everyone. All participants are on mute, but we absolutely want to address your questions, so please use the question portion of the dashboard. We will address questions at the conclusion of the presentation. Please also note that copies of today's presentation will be available for download shortly after we're finished. And this webinar and all other past PJR webinars will be available for reviewing on our website under previously recorded webinars. Our topics for today, we're going to address why a two-stage process is used for certification. We're going to take you through the process of a Stage 1 audit, beginning in quotation, what happens prior to the Stage 1. We're going to cover the Stage 1 front to back, give you a sense of what we look at. We're going to highlight things that can prevent continuance to a Stage 2, what some of the key concerns can be, how to respond to the various recommendations that are made, some concluding remarks, and then your questions. Now, why do we do a two-stage process for certification? Well, the short answer is we do it that way because we are required to. We are held accountable to a number of requirements in our work as a certification body. And among the many requirements that PJR is held accountable to are those found in ISO 17021, which is the primary standard for certification bodies. That standard includes a clause that reads in part as follows. The initial certification audit of a management system shall be conducted in two stages, Stage 1 and Stage 2. 17021 goes on to explain exactly what should be reviewed during a Stage 1 audit, and we're going to be including that in our presentation today. Now, part of the intent behind that approach is to ensure that only those companies that are truly prepared for a certification assessment will be permitted to complete the full audit. We may have some folks on our call today that remember what it was like back when you could go straight to a certification assessment, have your auditor show up on site. Unfortunately, in some circumstances, it was very quickly evident that the organization was not ready. And in those circumstances, the auditor's time and the client's time was wasted. And so that is a big reason why the powers that be decided that a two-stage process was going to be necessary. Now, everything, of course, begins at the quotation phase. You must be a PJR contracted client before we can perform a Stage 1 audit at your facility. Now, PJR has a series of scope-specific applications called the F1 series of documents that are intended to help facilitate that process. Now, our F1 documents are complex. They're all multiple pages, and they're all intended to gather a multitude of information. The more that we can learn about you at the quotation phase, the more competitive our quote can be. So honest and detailed responses also are going to alert us to potential logistical or readiness issues or challenges. Now, in terms of the amount of time that we're required to use for the Stage 1 audit, I'll ask you to bear in mind that as a MLA signatory accredited certification body, in other words, PJR is accredited by ANAB and UCAS, among others, and they fall under the International Accreditation Forum. So accordingly, when we determine the audit time, we have to do so in accordance with a document called IAF MD5, or Mandatory Document 5. That is a binding document for any company that is accredited by ANAB or UCAS as a certification body. And MD5 limits the discount that we can give to 30%, and it also specifies the minimum number of audit days. So we do advise that if you receive a competitive quote that exceeds a 30% discount, be aware they are probably not a certification body that's recognized by an IAF registered accreditation body. Now, once we get past the quotation phase, you will be assigned to an audit program coordinator, also referred to as a scheduler. And the scheduler should be thought of as your primary point of contact here at PJR. They are going to manage you cradle to grave, so to speak, and kind of make sure that everything is taken care of, scheduling your audit, making sure that you have all of the things lined up that need to be lined up. They are required, obviously, to assign an auditor that is qualified in your standard and competent in your technical area. And they're also obviously going to work to find an auditor close by if they possibly can, and work on your behalf as much as they possibly can. Now, the schedulers, for their part, they're going to send you a document called the F-108. And again, we have a number of these depending on the scope. And what the F-108 is it's you saying we are ready for our stage 1 audit. It's an official attestation of readiness, saying you are ready to proceed. So let's dig in a little bit into what the F-108 actually talks about. Again, these are a series of documents, and you fill these in, and basically what you're doing is you're going down the line on the items that are going to be looked at during the stage 1 audit. So it talks about what is your scope, what are the processes that you've established, what are the key performance indicators, have you conducted an internal audit? Have you conducted a management review? Have you assembled all of the required documentation? One of the items that's mentioned, and we're going to dig into this in just a bit, is the PJR form F-191. And that ties back to your processes. So when you sign off on the F-108, you are stating, I've got everything ready for my stage 1 audit. All of these things are in place. So let's talk now about this F-191 and get a sense of what that is all about. F-191 has been around a long time. We've used it for a very long time, and it remains a point of confusion for many of our clients. The purpose of the F-191 is to help ensure that the processes you've established for your quality management system collectively represent a fulfillment of all the clauses of the applicable standard. The intent is for you to document what your processes are and to assign the clause numbers accordingly. And it's a preliminary step, to be sure, in making sure that you've established what your processes are, that you understand what your processes are. So I'd like to walk you through an example of how this can be put together. So let's say that this was the raw interaction of processes that we received from our client. You'll note in the lower left-hand corner, there are 6 processes represented by this interaction of process flow. Sales order entry, purchasing, production, shipping, quality, and support. So again, we have 6 processes here. We are now going to organize these onto the F-191. Okay, so on the left-hand side, we see our 6 named processes, and across the top here, we have the clauses from, in this case, ISO 9001-2015. And these, of course, are the same clause numbers that are used in all of the Annex SL-based standards. And you'll note what the organization has done is they've indicated which clauses are supported by which processes. And if you look across from left to right, every single process contributes, and every single clause has representation. The exception here is clause 8.3 towards the middle. 8.3 has no content, and we would take that to presume that this organization is not responsible for the design of its products. So continuing on, let's discuss now what the stage one process is actually all about, kind of from front to back. A stage one audit is typically going to be conducted on site. We do offer off-site stage ones for a simple ISO 9001 management system. Now, when that is the case, what you need to realize is there are going to be some savings in travel costs, but the total on-site time is more in that situation. And that's because a portion of the on-site audit is actually the completion of the stage one audit. That is per the IAF and the accreditation body rules on how to conduct a stage one audit. It goes all the way back to ISO 17021. Now, before the auditor arrives, you should be contacted by your auditor at least a few days in advance. And that would be the case whether the audit is being done on site or not. And you should also receive an audit plan. And it's going to be important for you to confirm that any information on the audit plan, the address, phone number, employee count, and so forth, all of that information is correct, and be sure to tell your auditor if it's not. Now, once the audit actually begins, the stage one audit, like any other audit, begins with an opening meeting. This is an excellent chance for you to confirm any last-minute changes in details and to make sure that the auditor is aware of any critical information. If you have some last-minute visitors that are going to be showing up, any key personnel availability issues, and so forth. From the opening meeting, the stage one will proceed according to plan. The auditor is going to use a stage one workbook, and we do have specialized workbooks just for the stage one audit to record the results of their assessments. And just about everything reviewed in a stage one audit is documentation based in nature. So the majority of the audit is likely going to be spent in a conference room setting. Now, for every item that the auditor reviews, there are typically going to be two options for them to conclude. Either the item conforms or there is a concern. Now, a concern is defined as anything that represents a disconnect between the implemented process and the related requirements from the applicable standard. Now, once the auditor has completed their review of the required materials, they will typically need some time to prepare their audit report. Now, one of the things that we get asked from time to time is, are there nonconformances that are issued in a stage one audit? And the answer to that is no. There are no official nonconformances issued in a stage one audit. What we have are concerns, issues that are going to need to be addressed. And once we've had our closing meeting, you will find out what the recommendation is. And there's three possible outcomes from a stage one audit. First, that you'll be recommended to continue to stage two with no concerns. Secondly, and this is the most common result, a recommendation to continue to stage two with some concerns, but really minor concerns. And the third possible result is a recommendation that the stage one audit be repeated. There's enough concerns that the stage one audit is going to have to be done over, at least in part. You'll be asked to sign an acknowledgement of the stage one results, and you'll be given a copy of the completed audit report. Now, In some cases, if the auditor has a particularly tight travel schedule and so forth, it may be a few additional days before you receive the finalized audit report. But absolutely at that closing meeting, you'll be told what the auditor's recommendation is going to be. Now, in terms of what can lead to a recommendation for a repeating of the stage 1 audit, things that can prevent continuance to stage 2. An inadequate or inappropriate interaction of processes. And there's a reason why this is such a huge issue. You must understand that the interaction of processes, or whatever you're presenting as this is what our processes are, it's the single best indicator that you understand the process approach. ISO 9001 is a standard that is rooted in processes, and it's very important that a certified company have a firm understanding, a firm grasp of what are the processes that we have. How do these processes interact with each other? That's why those clauses are some of the very first ones that you read in ISO 9001. So if we have an organization that shows a lot of weakness in understanding what their processes are, that's going to give us some pause and potentially lead to us recommending that the stage 1 be repeated. So, for example, if we see an interaction, a process that resembles the Plan, Do, Check, Act diagram from the standard, or something that was given to you by a consultant that doesn't really reflect what you are, if it has process names that are unfamiliar to you, if you hand it to us and say, I don't know, this is something our consultant gave us, that's going to be problematic. We do have a special presentation on interaction of processes called the Interaction of Processes and its Importance to a Successful Audit. And if you've got concerns on this, I definitely encourage you to check that webinar out and see if that could be helpful to you. Another item that can prevent continuance to a stage 2 audit, and this is more prominent, this comes up more often, inadequate process measurables or process performance data. Now, both versions of ISO 9001, the 2008 and 2015 versions, they both require you to monitor, measure, and analyze your processes. So every process on your interaction should be monitored or measured in some way, shape, or form. And there should be performance data available to show that you're doing this monitoring and measurement. Now, for ISO 9001 at least, there's no magic bullet amount of data that you're supposed to have. We don't say that you must have 6 weeks worth or 8 weeks worth. We encourage that there be a certain backlog of data to show that you've done the analysis, but we don't have a minimum mandatory amount. Now, that's not the case for every standard. There are some standards that have a minimum requirement for the amount of data that's going to be available. In general, with ISO 9001, we need to confirm that you are analyzing the processes. And the minimum amount of data is going to vary, whatever is truly necessary to show that you've done that. Now, I also want to mention my final bullet point on this slide. It's important to remember that certain measures can reflect on multiple processes. For example, we have a number of clients that feel that on-time delivery is an effective measure for multiple processes. If your sales process, your purchasing process, and so forth are all contributing in the manner intended, on-time delivery should be in an acceptable range. So that we accept that analysis. When a client indicates that this is what they intend to use as a measure for multiple processes, that's absolutely considered an acceptable approach. If your internal audit is inadequate, that can potentially prevent continuance to a stage 2 audit. We look for evidence that internal audits have been planned. We look for evidence that the audit notes show that all your processes were audited. We look to see that the nonconformances have been documented and that your corrective actions have been initiated for internal audit findings. And also, of course, that your internal auditors have not audited their own work. Now, a special note on internal audits. We can recommend that you continue to stage 2 in a situation where you've not done your internal audit if you can show evidence that it has been planned. So in other words, if we are doing the stage 1 audit on June 1 and you have it in a schedule that the internal audit is going to be completed the week of June 10th, that's going to be generally okay. You show us that it's been planned. Now, obviously, in that circumstance, you lose the benefit of getting some stage 1 feedback on the internal audit process, but it will not prevent continuance to the stage 2 audit. Another issue that can come up, inadequate internal auditor competency records. Bear in mind, internal auditors are participants in the quality system, and therefore it is up to the organization to determine what it means to be competent. So to kind of put this in more plain language, when we come in and we say, okay, how did you ensure that your internal auditors were competent to perform the internal audit for you? We need to see that you put a process in place, even if it's just to say that you approved a subcontractor. Well, that's fine. If that was your process, then show us that you followed that process. Now, there are some standards in industries that require additional provisions be made for internal auditors. And in some cases, we even see customer requirements for internal auditors. And obviously, those things are applicable in certain circumstances as well. We may also have concerns with your management review process. We need to see that all of the outputs and inputs have been addressed. A lot of our clients use PowerPoint for their management review process. Now, that's great to show that content has been discussed, but remember, we also are looking to see evidence of decisions and actions, the outputs, so to speak, from the management review process, the minutes, what was the fruit of your discussion? And again, if the management review is not complete, but it's been scheduled, generally we can still recommend that you continue to your stage 2 audit, but you lose the benefit of a stage 1 assessment of the management review process. Now, once once the stage 1 audit is complete and the report is submitted, the stage 1 audit report is subject to review by the member of the PJR Executive Committee, and that is to ensure that the decision reached is appropriate and fair. PJR clients are also afforded the right to dispute or appeal an auditor's decision, and that is discussed in PJR Procedure Pro 10. Pro 10 is available anytime right from our website. Now, if the recommendation is to repeat the stage 1 audit, we encourage you to work from your audit report to shore up all of the issues raised during your stage 1 audit. That's the reason why we leave a copy of that report with you. We want you to know exactly what stands between you and a recommendation to continue to stage 2. Obviously, we also encourage you to stay in touch with your auditor, and you can even reach out directly to the PJR Executive Committee to discuss your remediation actions and make sure that you're on the right path to a better result next time. If you are recommended to continue to stage 2, again, use the report to your advantage. There may still be concerns that you're going to want to address before the stage 2 audit takes place. There should be a minimum of 30 days between stage 1 and stage 2. 60 to 75 days is preferable. Bear in mind that PJR does have a 21-day cancellation policy, and often back-to-back audits are going to be problematic. So definitely make use of that report and make sure that anything that was raised as a concern is fully addressed before the Stage 2 audit takes place. In conclusion, PJR wants our clients to be confident and comfortable with the Stage 1 audit. We feel that the care taken in the pre-Stage 1 phase and the mutual support of your auditor and the executive committee will make this process as seamless as possible. And we do wish you every success in your certification journey. I'd like to invite you to tune in for one of our other webinars. ISO 9001 2015, Approaching Your Transition with Confidence, is presented on a semi-monthly basis. It's a new, updated webinar providing an in-depth review of the ISO 9001 2015 standard, including lessons learned from year 1 of our auditing of that standard, as well as new guidance from ISO 9002. We have a brand new presentation entitled Non-Applicable Clauses, Permissible Exclusions, Exemptions, Developing a Better Understanding of what can and what cannot be excused in an audit assessment. And that's actually going to be premiering next week. This webinar is an exploration of a long misunderstood aspect of quality management system certification, and I'm very excited to bring it to you. Also, the interaction of processes and its importance to a successful audit, also currently shown on a semi-monthly basis. It's an exploration of the crucial topic of processes and how to correctly understand them. We have a variety of other webinars on topics including ISO 13485, IATF 16949, and ISO 14001. We would like to invite you to keep in touch with us and to opt in for future updates. If you go to our website at pjr.com, if you go to the bottom of the page, please input your email address and click subscribe. You'll be automatically kept informed of the latest news from PJR. I do thank you for your time, and at this time I will unlock the question portion of the dashboard and see if we have any questions today. William Gowrie asks, Stage 1 no nonconformances, PJR or ISO requirement. William, it is an interpretation of ISO 17021 that there are no nonconformances in a Stage 1 audit. So I suppose you could say that is an ISO requirement. Anthony Basconi asks, I have an audit with PJR in 5 weeks. Can the auditor send a copy of the audit plan now? Assuming that the audit is approved to proceed, and it sounds like it is, I don't think that would be unreasonable. If you want to send an email to your auditor and copy the scheduler, I'm sure that we can accommodate you. Any other questions today? Okay, well, thank you very much. Oh, I see we have the another question. Mo Ali, Stage 1, there are no majors or minors, just areas of concern or serious lack. That is correct. There are no official nonconformances issued in a Stage 1 audit. Okay, well, thank you all for your questions. Have a great day.